then turn it over to Evan.
Are we on?
We're on.
All right, great.
We're
I guess
on.
I will call to order the Finance and Audit Committee meeting as of January. Wait, it's not January 9th, January 24th. Of the Tompkins County Industrial Development Agency. Evan, if you want to go ahead with your presentation.
Sure thing. Thanks a lot. I'm Evan Cleveland, audit partner with Insert Company CPAs. And with me is Rita King, audit supervisor. And we're here to just briefly discuss the audit that's scheduled for next week.
Yes.
Next week.
Yes.
So we're required to communicate to those charged with governance at the beginning of the audit and the conclusion of the audit. And this is our beginning audit communications. So it's a little bit longer than previous years. So there was an auditing standard that was implemented last year where it requires a little more explicit things rather than implicit things. So last year it got longer and maybe a couple more bullet points in this one this year. So we're required to communicate with those charged with governance regarding any understandings of the entity and its environment, any changes from the previous year. The audit. And then we ultimately encounter any issues associated with the audit, we're required to communicate those to you as well based on our professional standards, depending on how material anything is. And ever since I've been doing this, we haven't had any issues associated with the audit. It's always been clean opinions, so I anticipate again this year. On the next page, it just gives some bullet points of our responsibilities and the IDA's responsibilities. So we're required to be independent of the IDA, form the audit, and issue the independent auditor's report on both entities. And then the IDA's responsibilities are just to inform us of any significant changes that may affect the audit, which I'll ask at the end of this letter. As I said, we're required to be independent. We have policies in place at our firm to ensure that all members of the team are independent from the IDA. And we have annual disclosures that we all fill out and say, yep, we're no issues associated with any of the audits that we are on. And the next page dives into the audit planning process. So we gain an understanding of internal control to plan and perform the audit, mostly over financial reporting. So ultimately, your internal controls drive the numbers. So we gain an understanding, ensure that they're in place and properly, they're working properly. We also we use what's called materiality. It's how we essentially do our audit. Base a lot of our testing on it. So I think total assets is normally our base, and everything over a percentage of total assets we're going to test. Really, you have fee income, you have some significant expenses, you have cash, sometimes receivables based on bonding transactions, if there's any crazy ones near year end, which have happened in the past. So really almost everything on the financial statements ends up being material. So we do test almost everything. Significant risks of material misstatement is on the next page. So every single audit has two main risks: management override controls and revenue recognition. And we have to plan and respond to each one of those. So what we do is we read minutes, we inquire with management and then the board, perform cutoff testing after year end to ensure that revenue is properly recognized, test journal entries, just to make sure there's no override of controls. We, as part of our audit, we also perform it under government auditing standards, and that requires a little more in-depth look at internal controls and compliance. So we have the Public Authorities Accountability Act that you have to adhere to, and Authorities and Budget Office reporting. So we look into all of that. We schedule the audit for next week, Monday. We're starting the audit. Should go smoothly as it always has been. I know sometimes there's some confirmations that take a little while to come back, but Ina's normally on top of all of those. And
yep,
I'll open it up for any questions for us about the audit process, or that I can ask about any changes that have occurred since last year.
I'm curious if there are any regulatory changes that have occurred since the last time we did this. I know we had the thing with the leases
Yeah.
last year, like, it's like, has there been anything like that that we should be aware of?
So the new one this year is subscription-based information technology arrangements. I know, I don't expect that one to affect you at all. So it's, so
And any of
leases.
that stuff would be in IAED's books, not IDA's.
So this one's munis, so IDA, IAD, one of.
Right. But I mean, they probably, you carry all the software subscriptions, like IDA doesn't have any, right? So that's
Correct.
not us.
So we won't have to deal with it. Yeah. Good. So next year, there's nothing, year after there's a compensated absences, but there's no payroll. So we're good for a little while.
Okay,
Yeah.
right.
How about, recall any findings from last year that we had to address this year?
I don't,
No findings.
no.
No, this morning.
Right.
And in terms of our required due date, it's
March
March
31st.
31st.
Yeah. So I know we always establish the meeting that we'll meet in March to go over the draft financial statements. So I'll have that.
Because typically, the board is asked to approve our entering it into Paris.
Mhm.
It has to be done. And I think,
So
we forget all the,
we meet with the committee
yeah,
mid and end of March, and then the board is normally in April.
Right, but we have to enter it into Paris before that.
Before then.
Like,
And I know
feel
in the past we've
we
sort of-
approve you entering it
March.
before the board has
last
seen
year.
it, and then,
Thanks.
mhm.
we review it and approve it
Right.
because of the timing with Paris or
Don't
whatever.
quote me on it, but I'm pretty sure last year was March 8th.
Yeah, so the IDA's board meeting is on the 13th of March this year, I believe.
Okay.
So
If I'm correct, maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, March 13th.
Okay,
if we approve, then it works for you, Anna.
I am totally okay with it.
So does that work
Plenty of time to enter it.
to have it ready and?
Yes, the expectation, we were ready March 8th last year, and
Yeah, that was around that time last year.
yeah, sometimes there are like a few things on the schedule projects that are,
Typically, what it is, it's the projects having to report, their job. Because we have all the information about pilot payments, mortgage recording tax. I'm waiting on some of the projects that have sales tax exemptions. They need to report to the state by a certain date, and I ask them to send me their information. So it's more about those that have pledged jobs. They need to respond with their jobs. So those are the ones I'm usually, making sure that they get those in time, but that's easy.
So everything's pretty much done except for that one page on the project report.
I think last year we even presented it with
yeah, we had like.
multiple
2 or 3
highlighted, a
things
couple highlighted ones.
already ready.
Right, yeah, so,
So then does
Like,
this,
really, at that point, we're like ready to issue the modified opinion, without like those few
Right, I
things.
mean, those things don't actually impact our financial position.
no, not at
So
all.
it's just like, yeah, your report's not quite complete, but,
Yes, correct.
so you can still issue the opinion.
Mhm.
So,
and then does this committee need to meet to,
Yeah, and normally we meet and you guys approve and tell the board that you guys approved, and then they take your recommendation.
Do we want to set up a time now, or was everyone's?
I think
Please
always-
send some emails out.
Yeah.
Or an email just to.
Yeah, how about we do that? Well,
Dates.
I'll coordinate with them, see when they would think they'll be done, so we can get the draft to the committee. But it will be prior to March 13, before the board meeting. So,
Should work for us. It just,
Yeah.
yeah. Let us know when,
so you have to have it in Paris by March 31st.
31st.
Right, okay.
and there's a lot of things to enter, right?
Yeah, there are some things that you can pre-populate, but like the final numbers and such. So, there's a lot of other reports about who's on the board and who's this and that, and. But it's the bigger annual report online that takes up a lot of time, especially from the idea, there's a large number of projects, so.
Mhm.
But once I have the information, it takes me just maybe a couple of days to get it done.
Yeah, that's why we have to like to have this done earlier for you.
Yes, so if it's approved for entry by the 13th, I have plenty of time.
Okay.
No worries.
So any significant activity since the previous year?
No bonds. I don't think we did anything at the Development Corporation. We approved 3 projects last year, all housing projects. I think we did encumber $100,000 at the. Can't remember which organization it was, probably the Development Corporation for the food
Fair commercial.
incubator project.
Do you need my signature on this?
Yes.
Yes.
please.
And remind the committee, internal controls, obviously our largest asset's cash, right? So
Yeah.
we have a dual signing for checks that exceed a certain amount.
25 or 5? Can't remember what it is.
You'd have to.
I don't recall a dual signing and I'm still kind of new, so I'm learning. I mean, I think you're
I
the
just
only
signed
signer.
it.
right?
Yeah, so there's.
Yeah.
I believe when Rick Snyder was in finance, he could sign anything under 5,000, but anything above, it was the board.
I guess that's.
Yeah, so I think that was what, but
So
I don't know how.
We already have the one for the countywide that has this number that's been signed by the county. We just need one separately for this entity itself. For the engagement letter. Got it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
I'm good.
All right.
You want to close the meeting? You're the chair.
Without objection, I would move to adjourn the meeting.
All right.